Okay, we're going to do a little video of what's inside one of these, how they work, kind of the parts that's in there, and what you get if you order the kit from one of the racing suppliers. All right, stay tuned. There's video, like if you go on Bert's website, they have some videos they made in the 80s, look like, and then look like somebody watched it on TV and didn't have the rabbit ears quite right, and then they recorded it on a VHS, so they're pretty crummy. I wish I'd have done this start to finish. I'm done, it's already back together, but I rebuilt the one sitting on the four-wheeler about 5 years ago, and I forgot so much, I was like, I don't know, it'll be a shitty video. But if I do another one, which I think the one in the modified is probably going to need a clutch kit in it also. But this is actually a ball spline, so I've never done a ball spline until today. The only difference is, you know, from here back, it has a different bearing here and a different bearing there and a different seal right there. And if you order the kit, it'll come with this bearing, this seal, and then this goes in the tail housing for a slip yoke. So the ball spline, you will have to go buy or order separate from somewhere else. The big bearing here on the output shaft, there's a cage bearing in here, and then the seal will be different. And then there's a separate kit that has the ball bearings for this slip yoke. That, you know, there's two balls that rides in each one of these splines, so there'll be one there and one right there. But I was kind of go through here and show you guys what I've figured out about these things. That way, if someone's looking to rebuild one on their own, there's a little bit of a guide here. Okay, so we're gonna start out. This is in neutral right now, so you can see the input shaft is the only thing that turns in the front, and then down here in this drum is where your clutch discs are at. There's a space, like there's a whole gear that goes from, you know, that's the front of it, and it's splined all the way to the back of this drum. It'd be a spacer, and then all your clutch disc and steel plates are inside of there. So in neutral, it won't do anything. It does turn that all the time, okay? And if you're in a low, let's get it. Oh. Okay, sorry. Now it is in neutral. This was in reverse whenever I was trying to do that, so I couldn't get it into low. Okay, so we're gonna go to low, right there. And there's detents in here in this shift shaft. So there's three on the bottom, 1, 2, and then we're in low is the front one. And actually high gear has one top and bottom, okay? There's a spring in here and a ball, and then the shaft, and then another ball, spring, and another ball on top of this shaft. There's nothing below this shaft. And in the middle, inside of that spring, there's another like piece of round stock that will limit how far they can go. Okay, so we're in the low position there. So as this is turning, it will turn that, and then you apply clutch pressure, right? There's a clutch line, and there's a piston in here, just like a brake caliper, that pushes this drum up and squeezes the clutch plates together, and that makes the little gear down in the bottom turn when you apply clutch pressure. And then that is when it turns the tail shaft. Okay, got that? And it turns independently from the input shaft at this point. All right, so if you're going to high, so you use the clutch to get rolling fast enough to glide it into high gear, and then your clutch has no purpose. Okay, I don't know if you can see, let's put it back. Inside of this, let's see if I can get my finger inside of here. See those teeth in there? That's what'll go onto the main shaft, at least in this style that I have right here. Okay, so that is direct drive. And then nothing else will turn. That stuff's rolling right now, but this is the only thing, the front gear, and this is the only thing that'll still turn when it's in direct drive. That's how it puts the most horsepower from point A to point B. All right, so if you go back to neutral here, all right, that's the neutral position. And then that's when you can pull it into reverse. Come on. Hang on. Okay, never mind. Now we are in neutral. So now I can pull that back, and that is reverse. So now as that turns this, it'll turn the bottom, and then that's what turns. You can't see the bottom one. Let's see. down there. It turns this gear, and then that turns the gear on the output shaft. Okay. So in that kit, you get, there's a seal here in this cover, and there's a big bearing, main bearing behind that. And then there's a bearing in between where the output shaft goes inside of the input shaft. There's a cage bearing in that. There's another cage bearing in this. I'll just grab them. Let me show you. These two smaller cage bearings is what will be in, one will be between the output and the input shaft. One will be in the reverse gears, okay? And then inside of this clutch assembly, there's a 1-inch shaft here that runs all the way through into where this piston makes contact, okay? And then inside of that, you will have two of these, and then 3 sets of these. There'll be one on the front, one in the middle, and one in the back. And then that 1-inch shaft has an O-ring on the front of it. Oh boy. Right in here, just inside of that. Okay. To get that out, there's a bolt right here. You pull this bolt out, and that washer is like keyed into the 1-inch shaft right here. I need to actually pull this one out and re-silicone it before I actually, if I were to use this. This is my backup. I rebuilt it about 5 years ago. It's got 2 seasons on it. So anyways, that's what that looks like before it's covered in silicone. And then there's 2 caps here. Those are still a little bit tacky from last night. They look like, this. This is what they look like. But they come in the kit. New roll pins right here come in the kit. And then there's 2 seals in this part of the case that the shifting shaft goes through, which are these little ones right here. Those 2 little seals. Okay, and then let's see, there's another bearing in the tail housing, a big one here, and then which is that one. That's the front one. That's the front of the tail housing, and then the 2 seals. There's a cage bearing in here also. It's much bigger for this larger shaft. That's why this is different than the slip yoke. But anyways, I just kind of want to do a little run through on those. For the spring and ball, there's usually like a little Allen set screw in here that goes in. But anyways, that's what it looks like. I just want to do a little bit of something to help. If you're trying to do this and you haven't done it before, Performance Bodies has a diagram and a list of all the parts. There's like 70 something parts, I think, in one of these. And it's the most helpful thing I found when I pulled the clutch assembly out, everything kind of got loose, and I don't remember what thickness of washers for these. I think it's 90 thousandths, 60 thousandths, and 30 thousandths is the order they go, front, middle, back. But anyways, that's really helpful. If you look on Performance Bodies, you got to have I've got a bunch of snap ring pliers. I had to go buy some new ones at Harbor Freight for 40 bucks and grind them down. 2 different pairs because they're not reversible, 40 bucks a piece. But because the snap rings on right behind the seal, there's a snap ring, and then there's actually 2 snap rings on this bearing. That of my 30 pairs of snap ring pliers, I couldn't find one and make it work. So, but anyways, if I end up rebuilding this other one, I'll try to do a better job. There's a damn stray dog showed up yesterday. It just hangs out in here. Damn it. But anyways, if I end up rebuilding that other slip yoke, I will try to do a full video on it, because like I said, there's not really much help out there. But anyways, all right, good luck. You guys can do this. These aren't that hard. All right, see you later.